Hey y'all, what is going on? It's me, Delores, the pastor's daughter, and we are back with another video about discernment. And when I tell you guys, like the things that I have heard that transpire over this past weekend, lets us know that we are in desperate need of discernment. Okay, so y'all get on in here, like the video as you enter the room, and let's get ready to dive deep into discernment.
She didn't just find out that he was a scoundrel. She knew he was a scoundrel. Because sometimes God gives us knowledge, but that knowledge doesn't have to be acted on the moment we receive it. This is all out of order because I was supposed to give you steps, but I'm going to tell you right now. She knew who he was a long time before this moment. But just because she knew didn't mean that she had to act on it. And just because she knew didn't mean that she had to ignore it. Sometimes the most powerful gift you can give yourself as it relates to knowing what you know is recognizing the timing in which you release what you know. Timing is everything.
Timing is everything. Timing is everything. Can y'all hear me okay? Let me know you can hear me once you get in the room. Y'all, I am so excited to bring to you another installment of a Yearn to Discern, a book review that we are doing with me adding my own commentary, child, because y'all know I bet sometimes y'all can't even tell like the difference. Like, is she reading right now or is she put her own spin on it, child? Like you never know. You never know. But hey, before we get started, with let me remove this overlay. Let me see. Okay, so first of all, why am I not showing here? Can y'all hear me okay? Let me know you can hear me. I'm gonna do a little check myself. Hold on. My own commentary, chat. Okay. For some reason, my little streaming app is acting funny. Let me see if y'all will be able to see. Okay, so that's the book we'll be reviewing. But before I pull that up, y'all. Okay, so let me just tell y'all about the stuff that transpired this weekend. Okay, I just got news of it about the lady being hit in the face with a brick. Y'all, are y'all like what? What in the world is going on here? Like, so that's what we doing now? Like, we just going around hitting folks in the face with bricks, and like that is just crazy to me. But like I said, you guys, I have been talking about discernment, and what we can say is that neither party in that situation used discernment. Okay. Now, I know that whenever you talk about a situation where someone has been victimized, the tendency is for us to have ultra sympathy, right? We are like sympathetic, we're empathetic, we feel sorry for the person who is victimized. However, right? Even though I feel all of those things, I can also tell you that she did not use discernment in that situation. She did not use discernment in that situation. And we simply cannot continue to even add commentary to a situation without being completely upfront about the situation and taking responsibility and accountability for our parts in the situation. Now, There's been a lot of back and forth about what exactly happened, how the young lady was taunting the man. He asked for her number. She said no. Her story is that he asked for her number. She said no. He picks up a brick and is threatening to hit her with it. She's in disbelief. And during that time, she gets hit, right? Then she has a lot to say about the other men who were there who simply watched her get hit by this brick and did nothing. And so she's disgruntled, right? And she's upset and rightfully so, right? Rightfully so. However, once more of the story started to come out and other people added their viewpoints of the situation, it appears that the young lady did not use discernment in that situation. Now, we've been talking about discernment, right? We've been diving deep into this book, right? So there is, like, I'm not just, just coming out of, just coming from nowhere with this, right? We've been talking about this. We've been talking about how you can avoid harmful situations and people when you use discernment, right? However, we see time and time again where people simply are not using discernment. Yet the tendency is for us to have sympathy, never really adding the viewpoint or the necessity, right, for discernment, never really making that clear. And the fact of the matter is that I truly believe that this situation could have been avoided had she used discernment. Okay? Had she evaluated the situation, right? Disengage from the situation. We've talked about this before, you guys, right? We've talked about disengaging. We've talked about, hey, when a situation like appears to be a ways, then you need to remove yourself from that situation. And I just do not believe that that was an unavoidable situation. I believe that both parties, right? And we have to make that clear, is that on both sides discernment could have been used, but discernment was not used on either side. But it's more crucial for women, which is who I'm talking to at this moment, is more crucial for you to use discernment, because guess what? Guess who was hurt in this situation? And our strength and all of that just simply does not match to a man who is violent, who has aggression towards women, who doesn't like women, who has been repeatedly rejected by women, taunted by women, or has had issues growing up with his mother, with his father, with whomever abused and used and mistreated him. And we simply cannot allow our own issues to cloud our judgment to where it puts us in a situation where we are being brutalized, victimized, abused, mistreated, manipulated, exploited. All the things that are happening to women today in real time. And with so much information out there on what we're dealing with, to still find yourself entangled, right, and faced with violence, when you can turn around and walk the other way, when you can disengage. Now, we know that not every situation is one that is avoidable, right? But we also know that not every situation is not avoidable. You know what I'm saying? There are times where we can simply avoid situations that we are faced with if we use our discernment. We all have discernment, right? But what we have learned by reading this book is that some of us, our discernment is on a more keen level than others. Some of our discernment is a bit distorted, right? Is a bit clouded. Our judgment is clouded. because of the things that we've been through, because of the way we were raised. Maybe some of us were raised that we're not gonna back down to any man, right? That we're gonna, run off at the mouth, and we're gonna, you know, tell him how we feel, and we're gonna just break him down, because guess what? Even though we can't compete with him physically, we could tear him down with our mouth. Well, I'm cautioning every one of you ladies that is listening to me right now. That is not the way you want to go in this day and time. That ain't it. You don't want them problems. You're not about that life, and you don't need to be. You don't need to be. You don't have to prove anything. Walk away, disengage. Do not give these people access to you. And if you find that in a situation is volatile, then you should go ahead and give your number and then go to blocking, later. Then do that. But you have to use your discernment in these situations, or you can lose your life. And I refuse to believe that there was nothing that she could have done in the way of discernment that could have saved her from being hit in the face with a brick. Okay? Listen, I know that people are going to view this as victim blaming, right? Because what a lot of us want to do is just have people feel sympathy for us. We just want people to feel sorry for us. To go to bat for us, to tell each other, well, you're not wrong, sis. He's wrong. Well, yeah, he's wrong. But sis, so are you. So are you, because if you had just activated your discernment in this situation, then maybe, right? Because there's no guarantee. But you know that when you use your discernment, it is a win-win situation. We have talked about this. You can't lose when you discern. And when we take responsibility, right? When we take responsibility and accountability for our actions, we take control. There's a serenity prayer that says, God, give me the strength, right? To change the things I can. Right? Because we know that there are times when we can change things. Like now, I'm praying that God gives that young lady the strength to change the things that she can change. And one of the things that she can change is her discernment. That's one of the things that is within your power and in your control. You take back control of your life. You take back control of your decisions. You take control of the things that happen to you. When you say, hey, you know what? I could have done things differently in that situation. I could have avoided it completely. I saw this group of guys standing there, and maybe I should have just went to another store. Maybe I should have just gave him my number and just blocked him later. Maybe I should have said, no, thank you. Is there a way to de-escalate these situations to where you don't end up being hurt? And I'm telling you now, ladies, and while we are talking about discernment, do not come on this channel expecting for people to feel sorry for you when you don't discern, when you are not using your God-given ability to make wise decisions and safe decisions for yourself. What exactly do you want us to do? What do you want your community of people who are empowering you and strengthening you and standing beside you? What do you want us to do if you don't use your God-given ability to discern? You actually make it unsafe for all of us. So you become dangerous when you don't discern. And I'm telling you now, there are a lot of women who are taunting men, who are saying, hit me, hit me. You ain't gonna do nothing. And I'm telling you now, you need to stop. You need to stop. You cannot afford to be that brazen and that nasty in this day and age when you have people who are on the ready to inflict violence upon you. And every other woman that looks like you, that has the same skin tone as you. And if we are going by the golden rule, which we talked about in the beginning of this lesson of a yearn to discern, right? We talked about having respect and dignity. But from the accounts of people who were there, she did not have respect or dignity for that man. And neither did that man have respect or dignity for her. So you can see how discernment is not being utilized on either side. And now we have a world that is volatile, that is nasty, and people are simply like leaving their home, looking for some mess to get into, looking for someone to attack. I dare somebody to cut me off while I'm driving. I dare somebody to cut me in line. I dare somebody to do this and do that. Like, people are literally like, I wish a Negro would. They're leaving their homes with that attitude instead of the attitude of discernment. Of, you know what, I'm going to treat everybody with dignity and respect. And so we have these situations where people are literally dying. People are being victimized. People are being attacked. People are being assaulted. And the fact of the matter is, there are way too many channels out here. Princella the Queen Maker, for example. Cynthia G, for example. Tanya TKO, for example. A lot of channels out here that are telling you about the types of violence, crime shows, for example, right? Of how volatile it is out here in these streets. They're telling you this. So for you to leave home without your superpower, and your superpower is discernment, that's your superpower, sis. No, everything is not avoidable, right? Like, there are going to be some things that you are faced with. But when you have discernment, then even when you are faced with volatile situations, you are more wise about how to get out of those situations. Are y'all following me here? This is not in an effort to blame, but there is plenty of responsibility and accountability that goes around here. And as women, we really don't like to take accountability and responsibility when we are victimized by a man. When we are mistreated by a man, we want to put all the blame on him. And I'm telling you now, you will continue to be victimized if you approach the situation with that posture. If you approach the situation with, I'm just looking to blame whoever hurt me, never doing any type of internal analysis, never saying, hey, I need to move differently so that I don't find myself in that position again. That's what accountability and responsibility does, right? That's what self-reflection does for you. It keeps you safe. And I am sick and tired of hearing about all of this violence that is happening against women when I know, when I know that a lot of times it's only a matter of you ha- activating your superpower, which is discernment. Discernment is your superpower. Discernment is your antidote. So let me go ahead and give you this dose of discernment today, okay? And today we are talking about establishing boundaries. We are still in chapter 5. We're still in chapter 5, and we are talking about having boundaries, right? Establishing boundaries from a position of discernment, right? And so we start here today. And if you guys have been keeping up with this, then we have been really building this foundation of discernment and really just building it up, right? We're starting to see some shape taking form, right? You know how you build a house, right? You build a house from the ground up, and really from the underground up, right? So you have to establish like the plumbing and the, maybe underground electricity and, and all the things, right? You start with building a foundation even below the surface of the ground, right? And then you start to see a foundation being built, right? And at the time, you really can't even tell how the house is going to look. You can't tell, right? You can't tell like how many bedrooms is going to be in there. You can't tell really where some things are going to be placed. You can probably tell just like what direction it's going to be faced in, where the front door is probably going to be, those types of things. You could tell where the garage is going to be, but you can't tell, you know, how the overall house is going to look, because we're just building a foundation here, right? And so now we've already built our underground plumbing. We've built the foundation that's under the ground, right? And now we are starting to see the actual form of the house take shape, right? We've got the foundation built now. And so we are going to continue and continue and continue until this house is built, until we have a structure, right? And when you think of a home, this is a great analogy, because when you think of a home, you think of a safe haven. You think of a place, where you can go and you can lock your doors. You keep people out, you keep yourself in, you keep yourself safe. Maybe that's your retreat area. That's where you get your rest. That's where you seek refuge. And discernment is no different, right? It's where you protect yourself, right? It's where you can lock your doors, you set your boundaries. You don't allow anybody to come over to your house unannounced. You know what I'm saying? Like, think of all the analogies and stuff that go into, how you run your house. And some of us don't run our house so well. So let's think of it like that, is that maybe, this is a lesson for us to, to really treat our home as our safe haven, right? As a place where we seek our refuge, where we are safe, where we can retreat, where we can get our rest, where we can rejuvenate. And then we go back out into the world, but we go back out into the world with our superpower, which is our discernment, right? We still go out with our superpower. We never leave home without it. But we are seeing now that we are taking shape, right? We are building this foundation, building this structure, a strong structure of discernment, okay? So chapter 5, in this section of chapter 5, it says establishing boundaries from a position of discernment, okay? So, and it reads like this: the first order of business is to be acutely aware of how you perceive certain things in life. For example, some people consider the word boundaries to be a negative word, right? Like, how many times have you guys thought of boundaries as a negative word? They may interpret this word in such a way that they question whether they need boundaries in the first place. For example, some people see boundaries as restrictions, conditions, limits, or barriers. You should realize that by placing things in a negative light gives you a reason not to consider implementing important changes at all, right? So what is this saying? This whole sentence here is packed with good information, because what it's saying to you is that sometimes the way you view it, the way you view a thing, the way you view a thing is going to determine whether you think that that's a good thing to have in your life, right? Or whether it's a good thing, right? So if you view boundaries as a negative thing, then more than likely you are not going to implement them because you view them as negative. But if you change your viewpoint of how you view boundaries, then guess what? You're more likely to implement them. Does that make sense? So what is going on here? This streaming app is really like acting funny. Okay, let's keep going. Instead, I like to look at boundaries as protectors and safeguards, right? So already she's changing the wording here, right? Because some people look at boundaries as, what did she say? Restrictions, conditions, limits, or barriers. So if you change that wording, right? You change those negative connotations that you've given that word boundaries, and instead look at boundaries as protectors and safeguards. Okay? I say this because the true purpose of boundaries is to protect you and those around you from harm. Okay? Personal boundaries are not necessarily meant to scare people away, but if it does, okay? But if it does, 9 times out of 10, it scares the people you need to protect yourself from anyway. All right? Does that make sense? They're not meant to scare people away, but if they do, then maybe they needed to. Okay? Such an unintended result is an appropriate byproduct of establishing boundaries that works in your favor. Think about it. Think about how many friends you may have had you establish boundaries and then they've decided that, well, I don't want to be your friend anymore. Well, that's probably because they were the type of friend who would violate your boundaries, okay? So they don't need to be your friend anyway. Okay? That's how you got to start looking at it. This is why you shouldn't be afraid to set up boundaries in your life. Moreover, in many instances, boundaries actually protect the person or persons whom you are enforcing the boundaries against also. But more than likely, they will not see it that way. Okay? They will only see the boundaries you created against them in the negative because they're not thinking about it the way you are. Okay? They are in circumstance mode. They are not discerning. You are. Okay? So sometimes the way people are looking at your boundaries are because they're not discerning. You're the one who's discerning. And so you can't expect everybody to be discerning or to discern on the same level you are in the same situations you are when it comes to your life and what works for you. You can't expect people to discern the way you are, right? You have to understand that you are the one who needs to discern for you. Okay? They will not understand that your boundaries are all around protectors for all concerned. Therefore, it's up to you to stay focused and continue with the boundaries in order to stay protected. Boundaries should be implemented with good intentions. Okay? With good intentions. Intentions are paramount. And I told you guys before when we were talking about judgment, discrimination, and how when we are discerning, we may be using judgment and we may be using discrimination, right? But what makes the difference? What makes the difference is your intention. Okay? Intentions are paramount. And when you are establishing boundaries, they should be implemented with good intentions. Okay? Intentions are a thing intended, an aim, or a plan. Okay. Number 2, the action or fact of intending. Number 3, a person's designs, especially a man's, in respect to marriage. Like, what is your intentions? So basically, have you thought this through? Right? Have you thought it through? What is your plan here? What is your aim? Okay? Those are your intentions. Keeping your head in the game at all times will ensure that you will do the right thing when establishing boundaries. When I say keep your head in the game, understand that I'm talking about establishing your boundaries from a position of discernment, of course. Okay? This is not about playing with people or anything like that. This is just really talking about staying with it, right? What your intentions are. And what your intentions are is to establish boundaries from a position of discernment. Okay? So staying focused on the task at hand. Here's another important point you should know about setting boundaries. Ideally, boundaries should be implemented before you have a problem with someone. This is key. You see, it is underlined, it is in bold. Do you see this? And I've already highlighted it, okay? I highlighted it. Boundaries should be implemented before you have a problem. Before you have a problem. Okay? Before you have a problem. Now, let's keep going. You do not wait until someone abuses your friendship, kindness, or generosity, and then you pull back from the person. Even though this is usually how we operate, right? This is usually our stance. We're like, oh, whoa, hold on. I've been violated. I've been abused. My friendship has been abused. This person's taking my kindness for granted, and now we're pulling back and then we're trying to establish boundaries. But if we establish boundaries on the front end, right, then we can avoid this problem to begin with. We are actually preserving the friendship, right, by preventing anything that can go wrong. Does that make sense? This is how relationships become fractured and sometimes destructive. That's not what you want. We want to establish our boundaries on the front end, right? So that we can avoid even having a problem to begin with. Setting boundaries for yourself before relationships begin help you discern early on whether this is a relationship you should even initiate. Think about that. Think about if you already had your boundaries established, then you could even avoid having relationships with people where you shouldn't have a relationship with them anyway. Right? You shouldn't even have a relationship with them anyway. But you don't know that because you don't have any boundaries. It's just anything goes. And then you leave yourself so susceptible to being hurt, to being abused, to being violated. And then all of a sudden you want to put your boundaries in place. When you could have avoided the person, the situation to begin with. Okay? You need to start taking stock in the type of person you are. What type of person you allow in your life, and be conscious of how these people treat you. Right? So here, let's take a look at an example of a scenario where you should implement boundaries. Okay, y'all. Yay, we're about to have another scenario. Okay? This is the BFF scenario. Okay? Here's the story, you guys. Okay, let's dig in deep. Let's put ourselves in the place of this story so we can, kind of assess what we would do. Okay, let's say you have 3 core friends that you hang around with in and out of school. You all went to high school together and you consider them to be your best friends. You are all going to local colleges and you are all in your second year of college. You are often teased by your friends and other schoolmates that you are the nice one of the group. This month, you turn 19 and you are the last one in the group to turn 19. When each of your friends turn 19, their parents bought a used car for them to have access to. They are allowed to use the car periodically to go out with friends, go to school, and run errands for the house whenever they are home. Whenever you go out with your friends, instead of riding in your friends' cars, your parents make it a point to drive you to the destination and pick you up most of the time. During the few times your parents allowed you to ride in with your friends, during the few times your parents allowed you to ride in your friends' vehicles, they insisted upon you giving your friends gas money. Okay. But again, your parents did not or do not allow you to ride in your friends' vehicles often. On the other hand, none of your other friends reciprocated when they rode in any of the other friends' cars, right? So, okay, you always gave gas money, but they never gave gas money. I guess that's what we're saying here, right? Now, so now that you turned 19, your parents decided that part of your birthday gift would be to give you access to a car as well. However, instead of a used car, your parents have given you access to a brand new car they purchased as the new family car. Now, that means you and your friends all have access to a car. Your parents thought about buying you a used car just like your friends' parents, but since your parents know and appreciate your responsible behavior, they decided to give you access to the brand new car instead. They and everyone else know that you are a trustworthy person. Okay? So you're trusted. Everybody trusts you. Your parents trust you. They're like, she's always been responsible. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and give her access to the brand new car, the family car. Okay? All of your friends love the new car and love riding in it, even more than their cars. Okay, so they love riding with you, obviously, because it's new, child. Okay, it's got that new smell. It's got, you know what I'm saying? It's that new. Okay, it's got that new sound system and everything, child. Okay, so yes, we love riding the new car. Okay, as you all continue to meet up at the mall, college events, and other social outings, you notice that your friends now always expect you to drive, pick them up, and drop them off at their homes or college dorm. So they trying to get like the service treatment. They trying to get like, you know what I'm saying? They thinking you like a Uber, but they don't have to pay. Okay. Okay. Their rationale, of course, is the fact that you have the nicest car of all of them, and they all look so much more attractive when they all show up in your car. The other parents don't seem to mind this disposition. However, despite you always providing gas money whenever you roll in anyone else's car, not one of your friends or their parents even offers gas money to you whenever the four of you ride together in your new car. Y'all, ain't nobody even offering to give gas money? What is really going on here? Okay. So you have not informed your parents of what is going on, but you are starting to get concerned that you are placing a lot of miles on the car, which your parents warned you about. And you are using a significant amount of your allowance to pay for gas. Because you are responsible, up until now, you never had a problem with your allowance. But if you continue on this route, you will have to ask your parents for an increase and explain why it's necessary. So now you got to tell your parents, I need more money for gas because ain't none of my friends offering to give me no gas money. Okay. Even though I always gave them gas money. Now that's not cool, y'all. Okay. You want to say something to your friends, but you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings or damage any of your friendships. After all, they are your BFFs. But as the days go by, you realize that something has to change. What should you do? Should you establish boundaries under these circumstances? The answer is yes, immediately and without question. The question here is, how are you going to implement boundaries? Ooh, y'all. Now see, now this is saying here that she could have, right? She could have established boundaries in the beginning, right? Like, okay, I'm going to be driving, y'all. Everybody, give me $5, on gas, right? So then that way I'm not putting in my whole allowance. And every time we go to the mall, I can't buy what I want to buy because I'm putting in gas and everybody else still got all their money. You know what I'm saying? So y'all buying shirts and shoes and stuff and jewelry. And I can't buy anything because I'm chauffeuring y'all around and I'm spending my entire allowance on driving everybody around. Now, the fact that none of her friends even thought about this is questionable, right? That's questionable. That's questionable in and of itself. But let's go ahead and assess the situation, right? It says assess the situation here. In looking at the facts, you can see how this situation spiraled out of control. Here are some pertinent facts that you should be alert, that should have alerted you to the fact that boundaries were in order. Now, here's facts about you. You are the nice one in the group, right? Because remember, everybody teased her about that, saying that she's the nice one. So it almost implies that everybody knew she was going to be nice and really took advantage of that, right? But let's keep going. Number 2, you are responsible, right? You are responsible. So you're always going to do the responsible thing. And not only that, but you want people who are your friends to also be responsible, right? Number 3, you always offer gas when you rode in someone else's car. So it's not like you ever did it, right? Where you just expected people to pay for gas when you rode with them. You were always the one who offered gas money. So those are facts about yourself. And those are facts that you need to consider when you are assessing the situation, right? Facts about your friends. Number 1, they all ride in your car consistently without offering gas money, even though you always gave them gas money and they accepted the money. So they never said, "Nah, it's all good. I'm good. I'll take care of it." They always accepted it. Okay? And you always offered it. Number 2, they all allowed you to suffer financially as the driver without sharing the burden, knowing that you shared that financial burden as it applied to their cars, okay? So they never even offered, knowing, and they all had cars too, so they all knew, that it took gas money. They all knew that. So no one's ignorant to the fact that it takes gas and money to go places, okay? And it wasn't like everybody was leaving and ending up at the same location, right? She would take them home. She would take them to their dorms. She was always the one picking up and dropping off and all of that, okay? So she did, in a lot of ways, go out of her way, okay? A notation should also be made about the parents, especially the fact that your parents were considerate of your friends by making sure you provided gas money to them. However, your friends' parents did not do the same, right? So they were even kind of brought up like this. That says a lot too, Honestly, as a parent, I would have discerned that I will limit and watch closely my child's friendships with these individuals because it is clear that their parents don't exactly have the same core values or ethical standards as me. Right? That was one thing that I always, would say too is, when people are picking you up, you provide gas money. And that happened for a while with, with one of my kids, and he provided the young man with gas money. He would buy him food. He would, do all the things because he was getting a ride with him. And I just insisted that, you know, that be appreciated and compensated for. Um, and then I think the young man ended up taking advantage of that, but whatever. We're not going to talk about that. That's not what we're talking about right now. Okay. I would educate my child on the facts. Okay. So you would have to, like, there's sometimes when you have to talk to your child about this and you have to say, hey, every time that you rode with your friends, you always gave them gas money, you always made sure they was good and all of that. Now they're riding with you and they're not doing the same. In fact, they're not even offering. It's one thing if you said, no, I'm good, but they're not even offering. What does that say? What are you discerning in this situation? And I wouldn't even tell my child that, hey, your friends are deadbeat. They're, all your broke friends, you trying to ride all your broke friends around, but I would have to like make that clear, is that's something that you have to look at and you have to evaluate these things, right? Again, the intent is not to hurt anyone, but I would give my child the facts so that he could see what is going on here. Getting back to the students, this goes back to what I said earlier. You should have been able to avoid this situation by doing the following: taking stock in the type of person you are, what type of people you allow in your life, and be conscious of how these people treat you. Even if you didn't know it before, you can see how your kindness was exploited by your friends. Some people tend to exploit kindness at any opportunity. Okay? This is the way that some people are. And you have to realize that this is the way they are, and I don't want those type of people in my life. It is your job to protect yourself and not allow people to change you from being you. So that doesn't mean that you all of a sudden have to be hard, or you can't be kind anymore. You can still be yourself, but you just don't allow people in your life who will take advantage of you. Right? So I can still be kind, but I just won't let, people who exploit that in my life. I'll keep my distance from them. Okay? Any changes you make should be made on your terms. The way you do this is by setting boundaries. In the scenario I gave you, even if your friends didn't intend to exploit your kindness, the fact is they did. Okay? They simply did do it. If you continue to allow them to do this, you will pay a huge price for it. You must now place boundaries on their use of your parents' car. So how do you do this? How do you do this, you guys? How would you do it? You're in this scenario, so you find yourself here, and I know some of you would be like, I would never be in that scenario, but just think about it. If you feel like you would never be, imagine your child is in that scenario. Imagine one of your coworkers is coming to you with the scenario and they're trying to share with you and get your advice. What would you say for them to do? The author says here, she says, start with the following, okay? Number 1, tell them you should all take turns driving their cars when they meet up, okay? So that's a way, right? Because if nobody's giving gas money, then everybody should take the responsibility on, right? So nobody gives, but everybody just takes turns. Okay? So that's a way. Number 2, tell them that everyone should pitch in gas money to whoever is driving. Also, tell them that the amount of the contribution toward gas money depends upon the distance you must travel to the destination. So y'all are going out of town. Y'all about to go to Atlanta for the weekend. Y'all about to go to Miami for the weekend, and y'all driving. Everybody's driving. Of course, everybody wants to get in the new car, right? Because it's the most comfortable. It's the nicest. You guys are going to look good driving down the strip with the windows down and the music up loud. you know. But they shouldn't be giving you $5 for gas money as if you were just going to, the next city over to the mall or something, to the outlet, You see what I'm saying? So it should depend on where you're going. That makes sense. These boundaries will protect all involved, and it promotes equality and shared financial responsibility. Think about how your friendship will be enriched, right? By everybody stepping up and realizing, hey, we got to do right by our friends, right? If your friends fail to respect these boundaries, you will need to make additional changes to the relationship as needed. Okay? So then that person's just going to have to drive themselves. Okay, child. Listen. You don't want to put in no gas money, child, and you just put all the gas money in your own car and you drive. In some cases, you may need to sever relationships. This is classic discernment in action. Okay? Classic discernment. I do not believe you need to explain boundaries to anyone. And I have to agree. Because why should you even have to explain this situation in these boundaries? It just, like, this should just be understood. And if you have to explain, then that's an indication for you about who you're dealing with, right? However, if you decide to explain why these boundaries are being implemented, you can explain to your friends why these boundaries are necessary. Once the boundaries are implemented, you will discover who are your real friends and who are not. In other words, you will see who respects the boundaries and who will not. Now, let's get back to people who are relentlessly committed to the core value of family. Okay? Remember, that's the first core value that we were going over, core value of family. And remember, we were talking about when people have this stance like family over everything, or that they'll do anything for family. But you also have to realize that you have family who will exploit that, right? Who will take your kindness for weakness, who will treat you as a doormat, and who will walk all over you to get what they want from you. So when you hold this core value as she says here, relentlessly committed to it, right? Then you have to realize that you are leaving yourself susceptible to people who do not value family like you do. Okay? People who place a limitless value on family would be surprised to hear that family should be managed from a position of discernment, right? So you should still be using your discernment even when you are dealing with your family members. The fact is, all relationships should be navigated with discernment in mind, especially family and intimate relationships, since they are the ones that have the potential to hurt you in some of the most severe ways. Let me say that again. All relationships should be navigated with discernment in mind, especially family and intimate relationships, since they are the ones that have the potential to hurt you in some of the most severe ways. Some of us have been hurt severely by family. Some of us have been hurt severely by our intimate relationships. But I'm telling you now, those are the relationships where we tend to throw discernment out of the window. We simply decide that we will not use discernment because they're family, or because they're my lover, they're my boyfriend, that's my husband, that's my girlfriend, that's my wife. So we throw discernment out of the window. All relationships, and we've talked about this before. I told you, remember when we were in church, my mom used to my mom was a preacher too, right? She was a co-pastor, and she would say, whenever all was in the Bible or something, she would say, "What does all mean?" And the whole church would collectively say, "All." All means all. Okay? There is nothing excluded from all. Okay? So you can't say, "Well, all relationships but the relationship I have with my father. All relationships but my relationship with my mom. All relationships but my kids." No, all relationships should be navigated all, right? Emphasis on all. And I really wish she had put this in all caps, bolded, underlined, italicized, parentheses, quotations, all of it. All relationships should be navigated with discernment in mind. Why? Why, y'all? Why? Because they are the relationships that have the potential to hurt you in some of the most severe ways. Once again, the way to navigate these crucial relationships in all relationships is by establishing limits and boundaries that will protect you, allow you to assist loved ones or those in need, but which ultimately serve to keep you focused on your purpose. I'm telling y'all, this whole book will preach. This whole book is like back-to-back sermons. Back-to-back sermons. If I was a preacher, I'd totally be preaching from this preaching from this book, okay? Do you hear me? Okay. The common theme with discernment in every situation where it is used is that it protects, assists, directs, and guides appropriately. Okay? In every situation. Every situation. Y'all see that? In every situation where you use discernment, it will protect you. It will assist you. It will direct you, and it will guide you appropriately. This is why you shouldn't look at establishing limits and boundaries within family relationships as a negative. It's not a negative, because you are actually protecting and preserving the relationship itself by having boundaries. Okay? Those boundaries are for their benefit just as much as it is for yours, even if they don't realize it or understand it. And I'm not telling you that in every situation your family or your intimate partner or whatever is going to understand that you are establishing boundaries from a position of discernment, right? They may not understand it or realize that you are establishing boundaries for the purpose of protecting, assisting, directing, and guiding yourself appropriately, right? But you are. So therefore, you should not give. You should not give in when it comes to these boundaries, even if the person doesn't realize it or understand it, okay? After all, you are the one discerning here. So you are the one who fully understands the ramifications of what you are establishing. Okay? What are ramifications? Ramifications, a consequence of an action or event, especially when complex or unwelcome. Does that make sense? You understand the consequences. You understand what will happen in the event that you are violated, that you are used and abused, that you are manipulated, that you are exploited, that you are walked on, that people are taking your kindness for weakness, that people are taking advantage of you. You understand the ramifications, the consequences of what will happen if you don't. And you understand that having boundaries is a proactive way of ensuring that things don't happen. Even if you fully believe that that person will not violate your boundaries, right? You fully expect that the person will not mistreat you, but you have boundaries in place because you realize that you must be proactive, preventative, okay? Remember, the point of discerning is to protect, guide, enlighten, and uplift, elevate. You cannot lose sight of these facts. The intent in discerning is never to hurt. Therefore, it's important for you to know that having family as one of your most prized core values is not the problem, right? So you don't need to say, well, family will not be my core value anymore, right? And don't even let yourself get violated to the point where it's like, well, I hate all my family. I can't trust none of my family. Well, what boundaries did you have in place, right? From a position of discernment, put those boundaries in place so that no one is even faced with this situation of being violated. And if a person crosses your boundaries, then that tells you a lot, right? That tells you what you need to know. But not having boundaries in place to begin with is only going to cause you and that person more harm than good. The problem lies in the failure of you establishing family. Wait a minute. The problem lies in the failure of you establishing family as a core value without establishing boundaries along with it. Okay? Having this knowledge now at your disposal, let's understand my definition of family, starting with the family I was born into and how that family dynamic shaped how I navigate through family and other relationships in my life by establishing boundaries from a position of discernment. Okay? So we'll get into that next time. We are already an hour in, and I'll try to keep these to an hour. So when we come back, we are going to talk about the author and the family that she started in. And I'm wondering, I don't remember what she said about her story, but I'm wondering. Oh, look, she said, look, back in Alabama. Oh, we already have some commonalities here, right? That's where I'm currently located, in Alabama. And I came back to Alabama after being medically retired from the military. So I'm wondering how much of our stories are going to kind of coincide, I think this is going to be interesting. And I wonder if you all can relate to any of the things that she's saying as well about how she grew up, But we'll get into that when we get back. At the beginning of this video, I talked heavily about the situation that occurred with the young lady being hit with the brick, hit in the face by that man. And my heart goes out to her, and I pray for her healing and her understanding. And I pray that above all, that she takes responsibility and accountability for her part and decides that discernment is something that she wants to activate in her life, that she wants to really use as her superpower. I pray that God guides her to this channel and to this whole series on discernment, and really that she works towards increasing discernment in her life. And I pray that even the young man who did that he finds his way to this channel, and that he works on establishing, really activating discernment in his life. And because that just can't keep happening in our community. And the violence against women, and I haven't done my due diligence and in looking up the stats on the violence against other races of women, because I know, like, right now my focus is on what they call Black femicide, right? And in no other race do they actually call it a femicide, which should let us all know that this violence against women is happening at an alarming rate, right? To where they're even putting a name to it. And so, I would like to ask for you all to just, to really pray and to disseminate these discernment videos, because you can see that as long as people are using discernment in their everyday decisions, then a lot of these harmful situations that they are faced with can be avoided. Um, and especially when we're talking about these public violence situations, um, and even when we talk about the intimate partner violence, because that's what's happening a lot in our community is this intimate partner violence, and it's truly disturbing. And my mother, my very own mother, could have been one of those statistics of the Black femicide at the hands of my father. And it was through discernment that she is living and thriving now, that she has a fulfilled life, that she's happy, she's healthy, and she is safe. And that's what I want for all women. And so I am starting my signature counseling program, my signature coaching program. I am a nationally certified counselor. However, when you all work with me, I will be coaching you, okay? Not counseling you, I will be coaching you on this process of discernment. And why? Why discernment? Because discernment is your superpower. It is. It's your superpower to break free. Okay? To break free of spiritual abuse, break free of abuse, break free of toxic relationships. Right? So that you can reclaim your voice. You can reclaim your identity. You can reclaim your self-worth. And you have to ask yourself, how worthy do you feel right now? Do you even have your own identity? Your voice. And some of us have been silenced, we've been isolated, and we've been terrorized. And it's time for us to break free of that. And our ticket to break free is discernment. It's discernment. And so make sure that you share this video. Share it with men and women alike. At least share it with 2 people. Hit the share button, send it to 2 people. And that is your, that is your contribution to making this world better. Because we all need discernment. Okay? So I'm going to let you all go for now, and I will talk to you all later. And remember, you are important to me. I need you to survive. I love you guys. Bye-bye for now.